When I was a boy growing up in Bridgeport, Michigan in the mid-1960s, church was not given much thought in my parents' home. How different our lives would have been had Dad and Mom placed their faith in Jesus, but such was not the case. We did infrequently attend church, but that was usually on special occasions like Easter and Christmas, and sometimes Mom would seem to get to feel guilty for not having us kids in Sunday school, and she would get a gung-ho attitude and send us off, but by the next Sunday, that was forgotten. It wasn't that we had to go very far. We only lived a block from Bridgeport Community Church, which was located on the corner of Shreve and State Streets. Our home was on Shreve Drive. It was not as though Dad had to crawl out of bed on his day off and drive miles to church. You could just about spit out our front door and hit the church's parking lot. In retrospect, I'm surprised Mom did not insist on us kids attending. In her youth, she attended First Christian Church in Saginaw, and from what she told me, she had been quite involved in church activities. I do have a few memories of church. It impressed me the few times I attended. One Christmas season, I must have been only 5 or 6, my brother Bill, sister Roseanne, and I were invited to be in a play about Jesus' birth. All the children of the church, which must have been a total of about 10 or 12, participated. At that time, I believe the church was under the leadership of Pastor Heffermill, an older balding man with some gray hair on the sides of his head. What I remember of the play was a rehearsal. We were up in the left-hand corner of the church, and it seemed so very dark to me there. Some woman adjusted our costumes, trying to get each of us kids to look just exactly right, and we sang away in a manger as generations of children had before us and would in the years to come. We were all gathered around a nativity scene. Well, this is just one of those moment memories, not of great significance, yet still clear as a bell in my mind for some reason. My next memory is of an episode that seemed as if it would never end, yet the years have passed by so very swiftly. Every so often, since we were members of the church, my brother Bill and I would come up in the rotation to be altar boys. This time it was at night, and it seems like it was in the winter. What difference does the season make? Well, I always had to pee a lot more in the winter, and this night was a most bladder-exploding circumstance. When we got to the church, we all went in the side entrance and into the office, where we put on our red and black robes. By this time, Pastor Kitley was the head of the church. Anyway, as the service was about to begin, we were both given a long gold-colored rod. On one end was a little wick and a snuffer cup or bell. There was also a lever which would let out more wick if you needed to keep the little flame going on the end of it. We stood behind the pastor, one on each side, and as the organ music began, we followed Pastor Kitley up the center aisle and then up onto the altar where he sat down, and Bill and I went to opposite sides and lit the candles there, and I did the same thing on my side as he did, and of course the organ music was playing while this was going on. When we were done, we took a seat next to each other and on the altar, and when the music stopped, the pastor got up and began his sermon, and he no more than began, and I had to pee. I had to pee so bad it hurt. And the more he talked, the more unbearable my pain became. I had to pee so bad, I didn't know what to do. I thought about just getting up, walking to the back of the church into the restroom, and be done with it. But we had been warned never to leave the altar till the service was done, because it would be a distraction. But I didn't know how much longer I could hold back. What was going to happen would surely be a distraction too. And surely it was better to go down off the altar than it was to sit up there and pee all over. How much longer can he possibly talk? I kept asking myself, and I looked at my brother Bill, and though if he just looked at me, I could quietly ask him what I should do, but the darned idiot just kept on staring at Pastor Kitley. I didn't think it was so much he was absorbing the gospel message as he was just him being zoned out. My brother Bill was never the brightest. After what seemed an eternity, Pastor Kitley finally closed, and the organ began to play, and Bill and I snuffed out the candles and slowly walked down the aisle as the organ music played on and on and on. Every step was torture. But when we got to the back, I shoved my candle rod into Bill's free hand, and I was like a bat out of hell into the men's room for blessed relief. Now, the next memory is off the subject of church, but still on the subject of taking a whiz. The incident shows what a suburban kid I was, as I had very little exposure to rural or farm lifeways. My oldest brother Frank dated Jean Pop, whose father Bill had a large farm on Studer Drive, also in Bridgeport. It was bordered by the Cass River, and one day I went out to the farm with my dad. Bill Pop was a heavy-set man, but I remember him. He always had a big smile on his face and a really jolly laugh. He was a truly wonderful person. But Dad told me to go ahead and do some exploring while he and Mr. Pop had a visit. So I set off on my own, which seemed very cool because whenever my mom was around, I never got to go off on my own. I don't know what she thought was going to happen to me if I did, but who knows, she was kind of strange sometimes. This was really cool. I was by myself and had set off across the farm field. I came to a part of the field that was fenced in, and this was not too far from the bank of the river. There were cows in the fenced-in area, and the fence kind of emitted a humming or buzzing sound, but I thought nothing of it, and as luck would have it, I had to pee again. I looked around to see if anybody was watching. No one was. I did my pants, took aim, and at the fence and started to pee and let out the loudest scream I'd ever screamed. I knew in short order what the humming was. It was an electric fence, the first one I'd ever encountered, and the pain of that shock was worse than any hurt I had ever experienced up to that point. I fell flat on my back on the ground where tears formed in my eyes as I writhed in pain. So, yeah, I really don't know what happened after that moment, but I have always given electric fences a wide berth since then. There's one other memory I have of the church, a rather sad memory. As I said, I grew up on Shreve Drive. It was a fairly short, dead-end road back then. Everyone pretty much knew everyone else. The family at the end of the road was somewhat of a mystery. They had a large brick house set off the road with a semicircle driveway, and their name, as I recall, was McManus. This was the Vietnam era, and they had two sons just about age to be drafted. The boys' names were Mike and Mark. Well, one of the boys was too young to go into the service, so he got his parents to sign for him, and sure enough, after basic training, he went directly to Vietnam. I don't know how much time went by, but one day a government car with two uniformed officers came down the road and turned into the McManus' driveway. Mom saw it, and I could see tears in her eyes, and I remember asking her what was wrong. And she told me that car was probably there to give notice that their son had been killed. And she was right. He was one of the multitude of young men that died in Vietnam. I'm not sure how long it was after that, and his funeral was held at the Bridgeport Community Church, and I don't remember the service itself, but I do remember his coffin draped with the American flag being brought out of the church. There was so much crying and sad sobs, but I don't ever remember seeing the red, white, and blue of our flag looking more stunning than on that day on that young man's coffin. The conflict touched so many families across the nation with deep sorrow. My brother Frank was in the Air Force, but he served his time in England. My brother Bill served in Vietnam, but he came home safe from that Asian hell. Well, that's about it for this time. Thanks for stopping by and sharing in my memories, and I'd be happy to hear your memories also, so please feel free to leave them in the comment section below.